Hello, I'm Judy. Welcome to the Armchair Traveler Investigates. My travel blogs are about more than places. They're stories about people, how their lives shaped those places, and in turn, how the places shaped their lives. These are the kinds of people I'll never meet, but whose stories can tell us far more than what you find in the average history book. There are important lessons for today. And the best part? You don't have to go to a library, sort through stacks of books, or even dig through the internet. You can just relax, sit back, and travel through time with me. This episode is something special, an extended armchair traveler investigations of the lifetimes and legacies of a Briton born a Duchess, twice a Queen of France, who only lived to be 35, but whose world was changing faster than imaginable, especially in art and culture. Her name was Anne. When Anne was just 11 years old, her father, Duke Francis II of Brittany, died, and everything changed. His death left Anne not only an orphan, but the ruler of a proud and independent duchy, surrounded by powerful neighbors and potential enemies. Brittany was rich, strategic, and fiercely protective of its freedom and independence. But to France, it was unfinished business, the last great duchy yet to be absorbed into the crown. To defend her inheritance, Anne's advisors arranged a marriage by proxy to Maximilian of Austria, the King of the Romans and future Holy Roman Emperor. It was a bold move, a political gamble meant to shield Brittany behind the might of the Habsburg. But in France, the marriage was seen as an insult and a threat. King Charles VIII responded not with words, but with armies. By the winter of 1491, French forces surrounded Rennes. Brittany was exhausted, its allies scattered, and so the young Duchess, barely 14, was forced to make an unthinkable choice: surrender her independence to save her land. In December 1491, Anne married Charles VIII. She was 14, he 21. Not an uncommon age difference at the time. And though the match was born from politics, their union began a quiet transformation at the heart of the Kingdom of France. The marriage united Brittany with the French crown, a political victory for Charles, but also a personal one. Those who knew the couple wrote about their apparent genuine affection for one another. Anne, intelligent and strong-willed, earned the king's respect, but it was a long time coming. The still very young Queen of France had little, if any, to say in the policies and plans of her ambitious husband. Anne of Brittany's influence would grow over time. Together, they reshaped the kingdom into centers of learning and culture. Italian artists arrived, bringing Renaissance ideals. Anne's taste leaned toward the spiritual and refined: manuscripts, embroidery, devotional books, and music. Charles admired chivalric glory and the art of war, and that would get him into great trouble. By the mid-1440s, Charles dreamed of glory far beyond the Loire or even France. He imagined Naples and even a new crusade. Before leaving, he entrusted governance of his kingdom to his sister, Anne of France. In late 1494, he led his army across the Alps, soldiers, cannon, and curiosity all in tow. The campaign would prove unsuccessful in many ways, but it transformed everything. Charles easily conquered the kingdom of Naples, to which he had a family claim of kingship, mostly because the Napolitans didn't resist. Through Florence, Rome, and Naples, the French encountered color, frescoes, and sculpture, alive with human form. However, campaigns are expensive and dangerous. By the summer of 1495, Charles and his army were making their way home to France. Along the way, they clashed with Venetian forces at the Battle of Fornovo, a tense encounter during the retreat that tested the French army but did not stop the journey north. Neither side really won that battle as far as I can tell, so neither side actually lost. Charles managed to retreat back across the Alps, his army mostly intact. At home, he framed the campaign as a grand victory and was making plans to return the following year to finish the job, but that was not to be. What did happen is that artists, engineers, and architects followed him home. Some were invited, some were just intrigued by the court. Returning to Amboise, Charles brought not just trophies, but the spirit of the Italian Renaissance. The art of war was evolving, and it now involved gunpowder and artillery. And so did the art of peace, which involved more than diplomacy. It involved art, painting, architecture, and kingship. France had stepped into a new age. While Charles dreamed of empire and chivalry, Anne built a quieter kingdom based on faith, art, and learning. Her court became a haven for poets, musicians, and scholars. Illuminators crafted her prayer books, saints and flowers mingled in gold, and lapis. Embroiderers celebrated her ermine and faith, devotion and identity intertwined. Anne commissioned chapels and tombs, blending Gothic stonework into Italian symmetry. Art became purposeful, memory, piety, and power, but framed quite differently than it had been earlier. Unfortunately, tragedy shadowed her life. Many of her children died, and Charles VIII died suddenly in 1498. Widowed at 21, Anne would marry Louis XII, shaping the French court once more. In 1499, Anne became Queen of France again, beside Louis XII. No longer a powerless, unlearned ingenue, and still in control of her duchy, she negotiated her own terms, securing Brittany's continuing autonomy within France. Louis respected her intellect and devotion. Their court shone thoughtful, elegant, and now distinctly French. Anne continued to surround herself with artists, calligraphers, and architects. Illuminated manuscripts, devotional books, and portraits blended Italian balance with northern precision. The residences at Amboise and later Blois itself reflected airy loggias, carved garlands, and garden-facing windows. Her crowned ermine and motto, "A ma vie," to my life, projected loyalty, piety, and dignity. By the time of her death in 1514, the medieval world was gone, replaced by a new version of beauty, order, and human presence. Anne's life was the bridge across that transformation. Unfortunately, the same bad luck that had dogged her marriage to Charles VIII continued with Louis, who did expect her to produce an heir. Her marriage produced at least another 5 reported pregnancies, possibly more. Their first child together, Claude of France, was born in 1499. While female, she was apparently healthy and gave promise of a male heir yet to come. Claude succeeded her mother as Duchess of Brittany and later also became Queen Consort of France as the wife of Francis I. Though born a woman in a man's world, Claude of France inherited a remarkable legacy: the Duchy of Brittany, her mother Anne's wisdom, and the potential to unite these two great realms permanently. Like her mother, who persevered through 3 marriages to protect Brittany's independence, Claude faced the weight of duty from a young age. Her father, Louis XII, arranged her betrothal to Francois d'Angoulême, heir to the French throne, as a safeguard, just in case Louis and Anne failed to produce a son. The match kept Brittany tied to France and blocked potential claims from both the Habsburgs and England. While Anne resisted, fearing the loss of Brittany's autonomy, the union ultimately secured the duchy and made it a permanent part of France. Only after Anne's death were Claude and Francois wed. The marriage, not easy, was guided by Claude's quiet strength, steadfast character, and gentle influence, shaped by her mother's examples. In time, it proved a blessing, as Renaissance arts flourished under their patronage. Meanwhile, Louis XII, still seeking a male heir and peace with England, married Mary Tudor 9 months after Anne's death, a brief union that produced no heir, clearing the way for Francois and illustrating the pressures shaping Claude's world. Claude died at age 24, but Brittany passed peacefully to her son, uniting the duchy and the kingdom, not by conquest, but through her quiet strength and the work of her mother before her. Anne's crowned ermine and proud motto live on, leaving a legacy both political and cultural. Although not in the way that Anne had foreseen, Claude did manage to carry forward her mother's vision, guiding the French court and ensuring Brittany an important place in the realm. Anne's influence endures. Her wisdom, determination, and devotion bridged the medieval and Renaissance worlds, local duchy, and European ambition. Even today in modern Brittany, her efforts are remembered. The ermine on the flag shown here, pride in local history, and celebration of a distinct cultural identity all reflect the duchy she protected. Breton culture continues to thrive, with efforts to revive the Breton language through schools, festivals, and public life. Some groups even honor Brittany's historical borders, including Nantes, as a nod to the duchy that Anne and Claude safeguarded. Thank you for joining me in this episode of The Armchair Traveler Investigates. If you enjoyed my work, please subscribe, like, and share. Your support helps me continue uncovering fascinating people, places, and stories so we can keep exploring together right from our armchairs. Come back next time for another adventure, a virtual walk, a historical tidbit, a biography, or something completely different, with me, the Armchair Traveler, as your host.